Hello everyone, it's time for a book tag here. I was very kindly tagged by Brian at Bookish, and the original creator of this particular tag is Jack the Rambling Raconteur. I find it a very clever tag, so let's jump into it. This is the Historathon book tag, Ancient Cultures. So every prompt corresponds to a particular ancient culture. The first prompt question is the Romans. What books, writers, genre are your bread and circus? For me, that's Robert Silverberg, my really personally favorite living science fiction author. He's fantastic. I have here a very small sample of his books. I really like to get used secondhand paperbacks of his works. I don't know why, maybe because I love the smell of them, whatever the chemical combination is of glue, etc. I really love it. Maybe there is a little bit of an addiction factor to it as well. But I have so many of his works here, as you can see. And many more somewhere else will have more of my books. Prompt number 2, the Sumerians. What is a work you read many years ago but still appreciate? I still appreciate and still love a work that I fell in love with when I was a kid, which is this one. La Storia Infinita, The Never-Ending Story. I first read it in Italian. I still sometimes find myself reading in Italian. Of course, I fell in love with the movie, like I think everybody in the world did. But the book is much more. In fact, the author, Michael Ende, was not very happy with how the movie was produced and how his story was, as usual, diluted or watered down a little bit. And I've also heard that some people are such nerds that they get the English version with the amulet in 3D on the cover. Can you believe that? Prompt number 3, the Shang dynasty. What is your favorite non-example to pillory? This is pretty easy for me because when I am negative about a book, I'm very, very negative, and that doesn't happen very often. This particular book is widely celebrated, and it's also celebrated in the graphic novel world because there was a graphic novel produced and created based on it, and I can only say that I hate it. This is the book, American Gods by Neil Gaiman. I find it, without going too much into the details, but almost unreadable for how juvenile and more than simple, banal, and unoriginal and meaningless I found it. Sorry if you like it. Prompt number 4, early Basketmaker. I really love the ideas that Jack came up with here. Early Basketmaker, name an early work that points the way to later monuments. Now here I cannot help it but just mention Il Tesoro, or The Treasure, and Il Tesoretto, or The Little Treasure. There are 2 books written by Brunetto Latini. He was a Florentine scholar, intellectual of Dante's times. In fact, he was one of Dante's masters and teachers. And especially in The Treasure, is one of his books, but in Tesoretto as well, while it was thought and meant to be a sort of encyclopedia, there are passages that sound just like the Divine Comedy. In fact, there is a passage where Brunetto Latini says, I found myself in a dark wood and I was following this dark path. So the let's say, inspiration, if not homage, by Dante is absolutely obvious. Prompt number 5, the Babylonians. What book did you expect to be impenetrable but found quite easy to sink into? Well, this book is actually Jesus of Nazareth by Pope Benedict XVI. I was expecting it to be more difficult because I had read his Introduction to Christianity, and Introduction to Christianity is a book I love. It's a very deep theological reflection, especially on the Creed, but it's not an easy book. It's a book that I had to read very slowly, annotate and write and study, etc., etc. So I approached his Jesus of Nazareth thinking, okay, this is going to be heavy. Let's get into that type of frame of mind. But on the contrary, it was quite easy to read. I found it quite easy to read, very heartfelt, and in the typical Benedict XVI or Joseph Ratzinger style, a fabulous blend of highly intellectual content and also very warm-hearted observations on our world and on theology. Prompt number 6 is the Persians. The Persians, very organized, and so Jack is asking, how do you organize your bookshelves? Well, I think you can see behind me, it's not a great organization. I have most of my Word on Fire collection here in this line, and I think I have most of the English classics here. But for the rest, it's a little bit of a mix, a mix and let's say a random match. Sometimes I try to separate English language from Italian language, and in fact, this bookcase here behind me, all this bookcase is all Italian language books. So there is a little bit of method to the madness, but that's all. Prompt number 7, Ishango bone of Middle Stone Age, Central Africa. How does the length of a work affect your reading experience? I don't think it affects it very much. In my case, I am a very slow reader. I know that. In part because I just, like many, lead a busy life. But even if I didn't, I know that I'm a slow reader because I think I don't like, aside from maybe Guilty Pleasures or maybe Robert Silverberg that I read very quickly, generally I like to get into the books that I read, go back, reread while I'm reading, taking notes. And so that's a process that takes a long time. So I'm more somebody who likes to maybe read less but more intensely than read more but more superficially. And that's the whole point. If a book is really long and it's good at the same time, I will love it even more. A perfect example is The Master and His Emissary, which is a non-fiction book about the brain hemispheres that I read recently and that I love with all my heart and my mind as well, because it's such an intellectual feast, but it's very long. And I loved the fact that it was long because it made me sink into it and absorb even more of the intellectual findings from the author. Then we have prompt number 8, the Huns. How do you pack books while traveling? This is easy. I am very careful about packing books. I usually put them in their bags or even double bags, especially if they are books that I really care about. And even if I travel for work, I will be extra careful with maybe a double layer of bags. And even if I travel for work, I have to say I'm extra careful with double or triple layer of bags. Prompt number 9, the Aurignacian Culture. What are your favorite pop culture references to ancient cultures? This is a bit of a tough one, right? And I love the fact that Brian brought up the Walking Like an Egyptian singers from the 80s, which is something that I absolutely remember. And the only one that I could think of is in fact the lyrics of a Deep Purple song that's called All the Time in the World. Maybe you know it, maybe you don't. There is a part of it that goes, right from those early days, I put my faith in the axle, not the wheels. Like old Zeno's Toitus, with Achilles snapping at my heels. And finally, we have the very last prompt, which is to tag somebody. I know there's been a lot of versions of this video, and this is my fault because I'm a little bit late. So let me think about it for a second, and I will tag someone who hasn't done it yet in the comment section here, in the description. Thank you for watching. I hope you're having a very good weekend, and have a great week ahead. Bye.